Episode 16, Krave Jerky Founder and serial food entrepreneur, Jon Sebastiani. Welcome to The Art of Excellence, a show about people doing extraordinary things in their lives. I'm your host, Glenn Zweig. Thanks for joining me. My guest today is Jon Sebastiani. Jon was the founder and CEO of Krave Pure Foods, a gourmet jerky company. The company became one of the fastest growing food brands in the country and was acquired by the Hershey Company for around $220 million in 2015. Today, Jon is the CEO of Sonoma Brands, an investor and incubator for new branded food startups. Jon lives in Sonoma, California. Jon, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Terrific to be here.
So let's go back in time. You came from a family of entrepreneurs. Did you know early in life that you wanted to one day become an entrepreneur? Did you even feel maybe a little pressure to follow in those footsteps?
Well, I think you're right. I did come from a family of entrepreneurs. I came from a town based on agricultural entrepreneurship. So I feel like I was born into it. I was raised as a child, paying very close attention to the vineyards that were a part of my family's winery. And really the community of Sonoma is built on agricultural entrepreneurship. So I didn't, in my early days, ever imagine that my real success story as my own life's journey would come in the form of beef jerky. But nonetheless, I was always familiar and I think maybe in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur. I have many stories as a kid, as many entrepreneurs do, as sort of their first business. But yes, I attribute my passion and my desire to be an entrepreneur from my family as well as my town.
Well, you spent the first part of your career in this family wine business, and you started Krave after the family had sold that business. So the obvious question here, why not just start another winery? What made you want to go in a somewhat different direction?
Well, I think there's a lot to say about the wine business. It's a very glamorous, very big industry in the world, and an industry that carries a lot of pride because it's one of those industries that is more around family heritage. So in my family's case, it dates all the way back to Italy in the area of Tuscany, where my great-grandfather learned to make wine. And I think when you look at the industry at large, there's so much great material in terms of the product, in terms of the history. I enjoyed that journey very much. I think when you look at the industry at large, though, it's so crowded that when our family sold the winery, for a lot of business reasons, I decided to venture outside of the industry.
So I'm going to play armchair psychologist here just for a moment. Was there a part of it, do you think, that was about your wanting to prove to yourself in some way that the success you had wasn't just about your family, but your own business acumen, that you could make it on your own?
Absolutely. So there's no question, sort of a peek under the hood in my journey. Being a part of a family business is an incredible gift. It's a mixed blessing at the same time, where you are a part of a greater fabric and a greater story. Being the fourth generation member of a family business came with a lot of expectation, and I reported to my father. And as you suggested, perhaps my own individuality was, in a family business, I think anybody that's been a part of it can relate to, where you are following the trail set forth by your parents' generation. I have a lot to say about that, and a lot of it is, again, a blessing, but at the same time, in my life, after the winery was sold, I had a great desire to break off on my own and build a sense of credibility on my own, that I had the skills and the ability to navigate my own business outside of the shadow of the wine industry and outside of my own family last name.
Let's talk about Krave. It's clear you wanted to spruce up a somewhat sleepy jerky category. But why jerky? understanding that you wanted to focus on a sleepy category, but there were a ton of sleepy categories, still are today. What is it that made you want to bet it all on dried meat?
Well, the first, I think, lens that entrepreneurs are going to look through is does it make sense to me? Is it solving a problem that I can relate to? And in my case, the epiphany is very real. And I was training for the New York City Marathon. I was looking to get as much protein into my diet as I could. As I was training for this marathon, I was eating jerky. There's a great butcher in Sonoma that produces this amazing jerky. And the epiphany came where, why isn't this product available on a commercial standpoint? So I think when you say why jerky, it started with it solved a problem in my personal life. It gave me the portability of protein, the convenience of it being available. It was satisfying and satiating. But at the same time, as an entrepreneur, as I began to ponder on the opportunity in the category, I looked at the size. And I think drawing a bit of a parallel story to my experience in the wine business, the wine business is about a $30 billion industry, and there are probably 10,000 or more brands in the world. Jerky is a $4 billion category, and there were 3 brands that had an 85% market share. So just the size of a category as an entrepreneur that we think about entering, while there are lots of categories to go in and innovate and disrupt, size of category matters. And I think the competitive set within that category mattered. For me, candidly, it was a leap of faith. When you grow up in the wine industry, which is very glamorous, everybody, when you go to a cocktail party, wants to talk about this year's harvest or how were the grapes looking, and how was last year's vintage, and where'd you get your oak barrels from? It's a very easy conversation to have. Leaving the wine industry and going into the jerky business was a tough one. I mean, it was a leap of faith. I had a ton of self-doubt. But again, why I did that was largely based on the competitive set available to me in really looking at a large $4 billion category.
So when you come up with that thesis, is there any way, looking back in hindsight, that you could have maybe reduced the risk by somehow validating that thesis? I mean, you had a problem. Here's how you're going to solve it. And the question obviously is, can we find millions of other Jon Sebastianis out there that also have the same problem? Is that just going on your gut? Or is there some way before you throw yourself into it, invest all the money and all your time in building this brand, is there some way to sort of test the waters, I guess?
Absolutely. And in fact, we did deploy a lean launchpad strategy at Krave, which is really a fail-fast mentality of addressing your consumer and in a very material way, understanding the consumer's response to the product value proposition. So at Krave, we designed in real time our own playbook on how to validate a hypothesis. And so while at that time, yes, it made sense to design a more culinary forward meat jerky that no other brand had available in the marketplace, using whole cuts of meat, using organic ingredients, using claims like gluten-free and grass-fed and cage-free. But we didn't know if the consumer even cared. We didn't know if the consumer had any interest whatsoever in embracing what was otherwise considered a gas station junk food. And so there's only so much lipstick that you can put on certain pigs, and the consumer doesn't care. So we did bring the brand to market in a very accelerated fashion for very little money under a lean launchpad method, which is, by way of Sonoma Brands, the same method that we're deploying in other brands.
Can you give us maybe just a quick peek into what that looks like?
Well, the first step is to design your value proposition, which is the most basic concept of what is it that your product is offering a consumer that otherwise isn't available. What problem are you solving in the consumer's life? And then validating that hypothesis, whatever it may be, is in fact true. Understanding who your customer really is. You'd think that an end consumer is ultimately who our customer is, and that's true. But in our case, we had to also validate that store retailers would even put us on shelf. And so we designed an MVP, a minimum viable product, in a very quick fashion and tested that hypothesis, which was that the consumer was ready for a portable protein snack made with all natural ingredients, and that we would position Krave as a product, as a healthy snack food, not just against other jerky companies, but against Chobani Greek yogurt, against Kind bars, Cliff bars, Pop Chips, other brands that consumers would ordinarily view as a healthy and wellness snack food. We wanted Krave and jerky to be in that sentence. But again, we had to test that thesis in the marketplace. So we picked about 25 stores in the general Bay Area and conducted demos, conducted pricing studies, conducted flavor variation analyses, really looked at the repeatability of purchase, because obviously if you get a customer to buy your product once, that's terrific, but the most important purchase is the second and third purchase. So building that validation point of repeatability was a very important step.
Was the product available at that point, or you were just testing samples to know whether you should go through the effort of then packaging and distributing and that sort of thing?
Good question. We actually did have an MVP, so we did have a product available for sale. It literally was taking a black bag that you could find bulk in just a packaging supply location, and we stickered the bags with just a roll of stickers that had nothing more than Krave, a little bit of color, and the product's flavor. And so all in, I think we brought the brand to life for about $10,000, which included the cost of our first order. So it was a pretty cash efficient or capital efficient way to launch and validate the value proposition.
So when you're thinking about that end consumer, and I get that it's not just the consumer, you've got distribution, you've got retailers, but in terms of ultimately who's consuming the product, do you think about it very broadly? Like you could obviously look at something like jerky and say, look, we're going after people who like healthy snacks, end of story. Or you could get extremely tight, like we're going after men between the ages of 25 and 45 who are looking for high quality post-recovery protein dense foods, right? You can get very narrow, you can get very wide. How do you think about it when you're approaching a new category?
Well, we can use Krave as our case study here. And our early hypothesis was we pretty well understood that the existing jerky consumer was a male, directionally a blue-collar male buying the product at a convenience store. And that was the basic foundation of the category. We felt in our hypothesis by developing a product with all natural organic ingredients that had a culinary flair to it, that made it more exploratory in terms of flavor, because flavor oftentimes will express product quality. So basil citrus turkey jerky, just the name sounds a little bit more elegant than teriyaki, or sweet chipotle, or black cherry barbecue. So we had a strategy both in packaging and in flavor to attract females. So our early thesis was that by shifting the focus of the product to its health benefits, by giving the product color, a more feminine color, and culinary flavors that made it more permissible and attractive to a female consumer, that we could open up or double the size of the market. And in fact, our early data that came back was confirmed that the data demonstrated that the shifting of our product made it permissible in an open environment for women to consume. And if you look at the journey of Krave in terms of who we chose as our brand ambassadors, what voices did we capture to help us tell our story, you'll see a strong female presence in there, such as Jillian Michaels, perhaps the most important health and fitness instructor who was the host of The Biggest Loser. She was a strong woman who was very visible to the marketplace, who not only encouraged her audience to lose weight, but to practice healthy eating decisions. And she was a partner of Krave, and her voice helped us craft that story that jerky no longer is just a junk food. This is a health and wellness snack, which is better for you than many other snacks that you ordinarily would think was healthy.
And when you were working through those marketing decisions and branding decisions, packaging, distribution, positioning, did your background in the wine business come into play?
I think there's a lot of similarities, and then those similarities prepared me for the jerky journey, if you will. And what I mean by that is when you look at the wine business, it's so incredibly crowded. And I've often referred to my wine experiences delivering me a PhD in branding, because in order to compete, and while my family was a 100-year-old, we were one of the first wineries in Sonoma Valley. The winery that I cut my teeth in was a startup. It was a new brand under the family umbrella. And so I gained that experience in terms of trying to position a brand in an extremely crowded market. We can pick one of the top varietals, Chardonnay. There are over 800 Chardonnays just made in Sonoma County alone. And so when you think about how do you position your brand, how do you tell your story, consumer products goods companies in many ways are storytellers. You have to intertwine not just your product value proposition, but the brand DNA and what you mean to the environment and what are your moral fabric in terms of who your customer is. There are so many different dynamics that go into building a brand. When you're in the wine business, it's a refined skill that you have to develop in order to survive. So when I left this incredibly crowded space and joined the jerky category, which, as I said earlier, had 3 competitors, they had an 85% market share. It was Jack Link's, ConAgra in their Slim Jim product, and Alberto. Now, anybody that's listening that remembers Slim Jim, I mean, their marketing partners were WWE wrestlers.
Different market than what you're going after.
Yeah, and Jack Link's was, Sasquatch, and like I'm hangry, and so for me to layer in some of the skills of quality and really discussing the ingredients. When you're in the wine business, it's all about, from your visits with Satui Winery, that there's a lot of time spent on where the grape is grown, what was the weather like that year, what was the sugar level of the grape at harvest. And so a lot of that storytelling about the product and the ingredients I brought to jerky. And I started talking about whole muscle cuts. I started talking about our beef and our turkeys are cage-free and they're grass-fed. And we started talking about, what does hormone injections into cattle really mean when it comes down the food chain into the beef. And so we were able to capture a lot of elements that built into what a jerky actually meant. And again, back to the hypothesis was, does the customer care or not? And, as the data showed, they did. So the wine business was an incredible kind of training platform for consumer products.
You took the business to about $35 million in revenue before you sold it. Most food and beverage startups, as you know, don't ever make it to 10 million. Probably don't even make it to 5 million, let alone 35 million. So looking back, do you feel like maybe you sort of caught lightning in a bottle, or do you think the path to success is pretty formulaic?
Well, I definitely stay humble and stay hungry every day. And what I mean by that is yes, I feel that if I were to not express that I was at the right place at the right time with the movement of protein, that I would be exaggerating my skill set. So luck plays into it. Timing plays into the success of any brand, I believe. But at the same time, there is now some formulaic approach to it. I think it's more of a lens to identify opportunity and evaluate risk. And what I'm doing today with Sonoma Brands and some of the success that we're seeing in the brands that we've created, I think is validating to there is a playbook, there is a methodology to launching a brand in the consumer space and recognizing what opportunity means. And so I believe it's a bit of both, a bit of luck, a bit of lightning in a bottle, but at the same time, it's also there is a playbook that enables new brands to come to life.
Was the moment of getting acquired by Hershey as exuberant as you had imagined? Was it bittersweet in any way?
Look, I I could probably go on for an hour about that because I think it's probably the most near and dear moment to my heart. When you grow up in a family business, the concept of validation is something that eludes us, and it was a incredibly scary journey. At my age, I was 35 years old when I left the family winery after it was sold, and really had to reinvent myself in a very risky way. And there were years of self-doubt. There was years of people in my community that had wondered if I'd gone crazy by leaving wine and starting a jerky company. So when it got to the time of exit, Hershey wasn't the first unsolicited bid. We had received a handful of offers before Hershey. So the realization that I had built something of significant value, I had slowly become accustomed to. I recognized that this was going to be a life-changing moment. I don't know as a founder if there's ever the perfect moment to sell. My journey, I know that when you sell a company, it galvanizes your journey in a way that it captures what you did. When you won the Super Bowl, nobody can take that ring away from you. But at the same time, it wasn't just about the money for me. It was more important about establishing a relationship with the buyer that was going to nurture this brand that was so near and dear to me. This brand has become more about who I am than any part of my wine background. And so when Hershey came along and shared with me that they wanted to pivot, not away from confection, but pivot towards healthy snacking, because they recognized the trends that are taking place in the marketplace, and shared that they wanted Krave to be a part of their commitment to making this happen, that they wanted to keep Krave in Sonoma Valley because they recognized the culinary innovation and commitment to quality that this community represents. This was a partnership. To be a part of the Hershey story that embraced healthy snacking in a way that they haven't before was just a great way to close the story. So I still pinch myself today that happened. There are moments we called it a sprint. It was a 5-year sprint. While we sold with our trailing 12 months revenue of $35 million, we also were looking forward to another double, meaning that the next year after we sold was a $70 million year. So we sold that growth and then managed that growth for Hershey. And it's a very proud part of my life. And it's a relationship that I still keep today. Hershey and Krave are about 50 feet away from where I'm sitting right now. And so we collaborate and visit with each other and share ideas about the category and future innovation. Hopefully it's a story that continues on with other partnerships.
No doubt it was a fantastic exit, and I'm sure Hershey is a great partner. You also have founders out there like Cliff Bar, which came close to selling and decided, I'm going to keep building the company. Was there a part of you that was tempted to say, you know what, I've got something real here. We could sell, but we don't need to sell. I'm going to keep building this company.
I think it's a bit of all of those. And so as I self-reflect today, I don't regret the decision at all. I wondered to myself as the decision was made to sell the company if I'd regret it, if I'd miss it, because it's such a part of my soul. I gave that brand everything I had. It was an incredibly pivotal part of my life. At the same time, I self-reflect that I love the early stage. That is a part of a business's evolution that I'm most attracted to. Really the consumer science element of bringing a brand to life, giving that brand its DNA, building out its value proposition. As you look at the brands that I've most recently been involved in, I don't really invest in or build Me Too brands. We do disruptive, crazy things like marshmallows, which was one of my current projects. And so I admire Cliff and Gary and what he's done over there. I admire them greatly. I think, and Daniel Lebetsky's another individual, the founder of the Kind Bar, who has built an unbelievable, iconic brand and has no interest, at least at this point, of selling. And so, part of me misses the power of that brand and its meaning, because it was really the leader in the renaissance of the jerky category. But at the same time, what I'm doing today is so thrilling, and Krave and Hershey allowed and paved the way for me to be doing what I'm doing today.
You ran a marathon. Was that a one-time deal, or are you a marathon runner?
Well, I've done it multiple times. I think I've run 6 marathons in my life. I've probably run 20 to 30 half marathons. I've run several half Ironmans. I aspire to run a full Ironman. I run today still 5 to 6 days a week, which is 35 to 50 miles a week. I don't consider myself a real competitor. I don't aspire to, well, I aspire to, but in reality, I will never win a race. What I love about running is the freedom of the mind that it gives me. It's my time that is away from my family, is away from my work, that allows me to explore ideas, to work through problems, my own issues that we all have. And so running is my cathedral, if you will.
It's almost meditation for you.
Absolutely. So I have a great relationship to it. Meb Kevlazigi, who is one of the top U.S. runners, was a partner of mine at Krave, and we continue to support him in his foundation. And, I'm sure I'll be back at the New York City Marathon at some. I've run it 3 times now since 2009, and I'm sure I'll do it many more times in my life.
So beyond the benefits you get while you're in the moment, do you feel that some of those benefits in some way spill over in your personal life or in your business life?
Absolutely. Being an entrepreneur is all consuming, and, hard work is a requirement. And I think people in entrepreneurship sometimes overlook hard work, and especially being in the Bay Area, in the tech world, where leisure and comfort are so prominently built into some of these companies. When you start a business in the food business or the beverage business or retail business, it is just bloody hard work, and your brain is never shutting off. So managing your emotions and managing stress and anxiety and self-doubt, both in your work life as well as balancing the demands of being a husband and a father, in my case, running is a panacea for questions and problems, and it's my own, hour and a half a day to think through things. So yes, it has tremendous spillover benefit.
So given the intensity that being an entrepreneur is all about, is there really such a thing as work-life balance when you're doing one of these startups?
I don't think so. I'd love to sit here and say that I'm a very effective leader in terms of leaving my work life at work and embracing my home life. I self-reflected in this moment today where the Krave exit to Hershey has enabled me to not stress about certain monetary things in life, and how much grit would I have left, how much hunger did I have to win again, because it takes such dedication and such hard work. And I think as an entrepreneur, as a founder, we self-reflect on, do we have it left in us? Do we have enough gas in the tank to do it again? And now I'm a year and a half into Sonoma Brands, in every way taking this second part of my career even more seriously. And so balancing work and family is extremely hard. I think in my personal experience, it's only gotten harder. I think you need to be married to somebody that understands that and gives you the flexibility of that, because if you don't have the support at home, it won't work. And I think my family is a family that admires hard work, and that when we're together, we are present with each other. But at the same time, being on my computer or my iPhone until midnight every day is common.
Okay, let's talk about Sonoma Brands. And again, this is your food incubator and investment arm. You do both. You invest in third-party companies, and you also launch your own branded food concepts internally. What do you look for?
Well, there are many. I think it starts with the size of the opportunity, and being unique and disruptive or innovative. Those are very commonly used words now in the consumer space. And so I think it's having a lens of truly identifying what the size of the opportunity is from the get-go. And there are many great examples, and the one that comes to mind is a kale chip. And so if you're in the food and beverage space, a couple years ago, the emergence of the kale chip was a hot product for about a year. And the size of that category never evolved into, say, a potato chip. And so when we think about opportunity, the first question is going to be, are we introducing a category? Are we innovating a category? Are we disrupting a category? Are we disrupting a usage occasion? Krave is an example of kind of disrupting a usage occasion, because the real pivot there was taking an existing product and making it healthy. That opened up more usage occasions to more consumers. So we really need to understand a path in its innovation or disruption of how it's going to be a material brand in a material category. All of these things, by the way, are obviously building value creation. The next thing we're going to look for is leadership, founder passion. And so if we're going to invest into a brand, we're going to look at the founder, and almost more importantly than the product itself. What's the authenticity of the brand, the storytelling nature of the brand? Is it a real story? We believe in authentic stories where it involves something more than one day I woke up and wanted to make a jerky company. In my case, Krave was more than just identifying a protein category in jerky. It was bringing a lot of nuances from my family background and my wine background. Our investment in Dang Foods, which is the nation's largest coconut chip brand, this is a story that involves multiple generations of the founder's family. This is a brand that extends just coconut chips into other health and wellness product categories. The founders are brothers that work together, that have a close relationship with their mother, who provided some of the early recipes. The halo impact of them as founders, as well as the brand that they've built, is a value that other brands don't have.
So you've got this investment, a fruit and veggie chip company, trying to disrupt the snack category, healthier alternative. I get all of it, exactly what the kale chip was doing. And as you pointed out, the kale chip had this quick rise, and I don't know if they've completely fallen off, but they've certainly leveled off, and the hype is gone, and the acceleration is gone, and it seems like it's dying a slow death. So you look back at that, and going from the concept of a healthier snack, a healthier chip alternative, which makes sense, to then say, well, I don't think kale chips, but I like coconut chips. I mean, how do you get down to that level of nuance? How do you evaluate whether that category is going to have the explosive growth that you need to be worthy of an investment or not?
Again, there's going to be lots of assumptions built into an investment thesis. In our case for Dang, we felt a couple of different things. One was that the Dang brand had built itself through the coconut chip platform and became the nation's largest coconut chip brand, as well as the category was growing at significant double-digit rates. I think the coconut chip category was significantly bigger than kale chip ever was. So that's kind of point number one. We felt that the best brands that deliver outsized returns are brands that are not category specific. And so in the form of a kale chip, when you're pigeonholed into a category that's in its infancy, it's a big bet, because you've got to not only build a brand, but you've got to build a category. And in that case, I mean, that's double the work. And so finding the right brand within the right category is the balance that we're looking for. And we felt that Dang Foods represented not just the leading brand in the coconut chip space, but because it was a health and wellness plant-based snacking company, that we can stretch that brand into other snacking occasions with different products, which is what Dang has now done by introducing an onion chip and a Thai sticky rice chip. So now they have 3 branches off of the Dang brand, using their marketing efforts to build different consumers for different product usage occasions, and overall it's just a stronger foundation.
Okay, so you've got 2 startups you're evaluating. Startup number 1, outstanding team. I mean, you love them. Great experience. all the passion, authentic story, everything. But the concept, the category, you're not blown over by it. Startup 2, love the idea. Brilliant idea, potentially explosive category, billion-dollar category. B minus team. Which one is more important? I know it's a hypothetical and obviously there are nuances, but does the A plus team, do they figure out how to do something with an okay idea, pivot, extend it, change it, and eventually that's what you're betting on? Or is really the market, the category, the product, most of it, and even with an average team, they'll figure out a way to make it happen?
I think the devil's in the details on a situation like that to really give a clear answer. But if I had to cut all through that and give you one, I would lean towards team first, because I believe in this business, the speed to market and the competitive nature of just the reality of today's food and beverage place is that even the best of innovative ideas, unless there's a incredible barrier to entry, that copycats will follow on in short order. And so as we think about speed to market has been reduced incredibly by the availability of capital in today's food and beverage business. So I'm seeing deals come across my desk that are pre-revenue, that are raising Series A rounds. It's like the tech world. And so if I have a brilliant product, unless there's a trademark or patent or just an incredible barrier to entry, which generally is associated with heavy equipment expense, I can copy that product with a great team. So team and founder passion, founder DNA is probably more important than product. But I don't want to suggest that the product and the idea isn't important. It's just that I'm gonna give the slight edge to the team first.
Well, Sonoma, I know, offers a lot more than just capital. That's part of the value add. So beyond the mentoring and the advising and coaching you do for these entrepreneurs, what are other ways you help? Like, do you actually take on some of the sales and marketing, or is it really just mostly being a sideline coach?
It's a bit of both. So certainly we are providing mentorship and overall strategic assistance, and that comes in the form of supply chain management. It comes in the form of channel strategy. It comes in the form of thinking through brand identity and really sizing the overall opportunity beyond the scope of perhaps what the founder is looking at. But what makes us a bit different beyond that is the fact that we employ a very large, for an investment firm, sales and marketing team. And so when we step into an investment like Dang Foods, we'll not only help them craft a channel strategy, but for example, we may land on a proposition to Kroger where we want to live in a certain part of the supermarket. And in order to get Kroger to move the needle on making that happen, we need to demonstrate a stronger data story. So we'll help them craft how to build that data story and then deploy our people into certain parts of the country to kind of help that data story. So driving in-store demos, driving off-shelf merchandising activation, multiple areas of interruption, whether it be shippers or clip strips. There's a lot of strategies to help craft that data story by building and proving out that repeatability of purchase. When you're in a category like coconut, you're trying to demonstrate a sense of incrementality. You don't want to just trade one coconut chip brand for another. You want to prove that you're bringing in corn nut chip consumers or potato chip consumers to a healthier, more premium space. And so there's a lot that goes on into that. And that Sonoma Brands' unique approach is bringing that feet on the street approach to the brands that we invest in.
So give us a little glimpse into your view of the food world. What are the unexploited categories, the sleepy categories that you'd potentially like to invest in if you saw the right company?
Well, we think that, again, the snacking occasion is evolving at record pace, and there are so much that can play in that term and in that world. That is our domain expertise. So whether it be coconut chips or a marshmallow, or as we've built in jerky, we've taken under the Sonoma Brands umbrella a product which everyone in America knows what a marshmallow is. And I think most consumers associate a marshmallow with a summer s'more or a Rice Krispie treat, or maybe putting it on a cup of hot cocoa. But we've taken that product and we've reintroduced it with flavors like lemon, Meyer lemon, poppy seed, or mocha chip, or root beer float. We've made them using all natural organic ingredients. And the big idea, the value prop that we're deploying right now is making it snackable. So to answer your question, snackability of food product is a huge trend that we are looking at every which way. And that's evidenced by our investment into Smashmallow, which is taking an ordinary marshmallow and making it perfectly snackable. And if we were to dive into the data that we're seeing just in 10 months of launch, the success is absolutely overwhelming. When you find the right connection to the consumer by creating it fun and delightful, and the impulsivity of this product is there, but the repeatability of purchase is also there, it can be an incredibly explosive opportunity. I mean, Smashmallow in its first year will do more in revenue than it took 3 years at Krave to do.
You've had now 2 very successful careers. You're working on the third one, and it sounds like so far everything's going pretty well. Looking back, any major regrets?
I don't really have any major regrets. I'm full of gratitude. My journey was at times rocky and at times full of self-doubt, and I take a lot of pride and really a feeling of duty to give back. And so at the place that I'm at now, it's being an entrepreneur is a journey. It's a long journey at times. It's a lonely journey at times. And there were a few folks along my path that were incredibly helpful.
Mentors you're speaking of?
Mentors or other founders. Daniel Lebetsky at Kind Bar was a great early mentor of mine. And Steve Blank, who was a professor of mine at Columbia Business School, that is the author of Lean Launchpad, was a great mentor of mine. And there are many others. And I'm just full of gratitude in this space. There are some, mistakes that I've made along the way, of course. But I choose to learn from them and have this great feeling of trying to give back to other entrepreneurs.
The name of this podcast is The Art of Excellence. I'm still learning myself what excellence means. What's your definition of it?
I think excellence is an aspiration. I'm not quite sure I ever really reach it, but it's something that I aspire to be. And it's sort of perfection is not a destination, it's the journey. And excellence is a mindset, and I try to live socially excellent and morally excellent and design products that are excellent in quality. So I think the art of it is applicable to all areas of life. And, if you treat your employees excellently, you're going to build an excellent brand. And if you put your heart and you create a product that is real and is transparent about what you're trying to do, that's excellent. So it's a very powerful word to me.
Well, this interview was excellent. I learned a ton. You've been through so many different businesses and so many different facets of building and growing companies, and you're very reflective. And I can't thank you enough for doing this.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. You can subscribe to the show at iTunes, Stitcher, and theartofexcellence.com. I've got one small favor to ask. If you like the show, please take a minute and leave us a review on iTunes. I would really appreciate that. I'll see you next time.